Hello everyone, this video walks you through a beginning example of chorale writing. So we're in D minor, which is indicated by the key signature, but also by the fact that the first chord, which is a D minor chord, is called the minor 1. So we have that to go on. Our first task is to write out the bass line. So our next chord is a 4. So what's the fourth scale degree in D minor? Well, it's a G. It's a G minor chord. So then it's in root position, so that means that a G goes in the bass. Then we come across a 1-6-4. Now the first scale degree in D minor is D, so it's a D minor chord. And since it's 6-4, that means that the fifth is in the bass. So the fifth of D minor is A, so that means that our next tone in the bass is an A. Then we come across a 5-7. So what's the fifth scale degree of D minor? Well, an A. So it's A major, A dominant 7. So that means that since it's in root position, that we have another A in the bass. And then we have 6. So what's the sixth scale degree in D minor? Well, it's a B flat. So that means since it's in root position, that we have a B flat in the bass right there. Then we have a diminished 2. So what's the second scale degree in D minor? It's E, so it's an E diminished chord. So that means, since it's in root position, that we're just going to put an E natural there. Then we have a 5 chord, so it's the fifth scale degree D minor, A, so it's an A major chord. Since it's in root position, going to put another A. Then we have a 5-7 chord, and since the fifth scale degree in D minor is an A, and it's in root position, we have another A. Then we end with a final 1, since it's in root position, and the first scale degree in D minor is D. That means that that final bass note is a D. Cool, so now we have our bass line. Our next step is to create our melody. So, our possibilities. I'm going to say on D because the 4 chord in D minor includes D. So I'm going to stay there. Then we come across a 1-6-4. Now 1 chord in D minor also includes D, as it's DFA, so then that includes a D. However, then we come across the 5-7, and I'm going to have to change the note because the 5-7 is an A dominant 7 chord, so it's A, C sharp, E, and G. So I'm going to change this D by going by step to a C sharp. Then we come across the 6th chord. Now the 6th chord in D minor is a B flat major chord, so that means that it is B flat, D, and F. But the leading tone, which is what this is, has to go up, so I'm going to go here. You may be wondering, because in my previous video I said in a 5-6 context it doesn't have to do that, but in this case if we were to go down we would create an augmented second, which is another voice leading no-no. Anyway, next we come across a diminished 2, so in that key, in this key of D minor, that means that it's an E diminished chord, so that means it has E, G, and B flat. So instead of going to E, I'm going to go to B flat, just because to head down a little bit and create a little bit more emotion. Then we come across a 5, so I'm going to go down to A on this one because 5 chord in D minor is an A major chord, which includes A. And then there's a 5-7 chord, since we're in D minor. That means that it's an A dominant 7, which means it has A, C sharp, E, and G. So I'm going to put it on a G. And then since it's the 7th of a chord, I'm going to have it resolve down to an F. Alright, now we fill in the remaining voices. So for this tenor line, I'm going to go by step and include the 3rd of the chord, which would be a B flat. So I'm going to go there. And I'm going to move this alto note so it can to G, so it can double the bass, which is what you want to do in a root position chord. Again, the goal is to keep things moving by step as much as possible. Now we come to the 1-6-4, or the D major chord. D minor chord, excuse me. So I'm going to bring the B and the B flat and the tenors down to an A. I'm going to bring the G and the altos down to an F. This way we kind of return to our almost to our original setup. And then we come across a 5-7. Now I'm going to, in keeping with moving by step, I'm going to move the altos down to the E, or the fifth of the chord. Again, in 5-7, the chord tones in D minor are A, C sharp, E, and then G. Since we have one voice left, I'm going to go with the G here, and that works because it's stepwise. Now the seventh of the chord has to resolve down, so I'm going to move this G to an F, and then we don't want to double the third in this chord, so I'm not going to move the altos down to a D. Instead, I'm going to move them up to an F, which is doubling the fifth, and that's okay. Then our next chord is the diminished 2, E, G, and B flat. So that means I'm going to move the altos down to an E to keep with stepwise motion, and also because the tenor's only option really is to go to a G. Yeah, it's going to go into a G. And then our next chord is a 5 chord, so it's A, C sharp, and E. So I'm going to bring the tenors up to an A. I'm going to bring the altos down to a C sharp. It's very important in minor keys to remember to raise the leading tone, otherwise you have minor 5s, and that's not really acceptable in the common practice era, which is what all these rules are based off of. Then our next chord is a 5-7, so it's essentially the same chord tones, so I'm just going to repeat these notes. And then I'm going to keep the tenor as a chord tone and move this up by a step. Again, this is the leading tone, so it can go to the tonic. However, because it's in an inner voice, it doesn't have to, but doubling the fifth wouldn't really do us any favors here. So again, I chose these notes because a 1 chord in D minor is, well, D minor chord, so D, F, and A. So as you can see, there were a bunch of choices that I came across that could have given me a different result. So if you're wondering, well, what if? That very well could work, but this is what I'm going to go with right now. So now we check over whether or not we had leading tones and sevenths going in the right way. So here we have a leading tone. It goes up to the tonic. We can tell it's a leading tone because we have the 5 right here, and then this is the third of the chord. Then we have the seventh of this chord, and it goes down, so that's good. Then we have the leading tone of these two 5s, and it goes to the tonic. And then we have the seventh of this chord, which is in the soprano, go down. Then we check for parallel fifths. So there's a fifth between these two voices, and it's not in the same two voices in the next chord. There's a fifth between these two voices. It was entered by oblique motion, so it's okay. Then there's no fifth in this chord. And then there's a fifth right here. It was entered by oblique motion, so it's okay. And then, oh look, we have parallel fifths. There's an A right here, an E right here, B flat, and an F. So that means that we need to do something different. Now, what can we do differently, you may ask? That's a good question. I'm gonna say that this is one of those really, rare circumstances where they may even allow us to double the third. It's a really rare circumstance. I'm trying to see if there's a better way to do this. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. That's a better way to do this. I'm going to keep it like this, but I'm going to change this note. So now I'm going to change the roles that the tenors and altos have in these chords. So now I'm making it so that the alto has the seventh, which goes down, and the tenor has the has the 5th scale degree, which goes down to here. Okay, so anyway, let's start from the fifths again. So there's now no 5th in this chord. Then we have a 5th right here and right here. This was entered, well, it's not entered ideally, but it's with an inner voice, so it doesn't matter as much. And then we have 5th right here, and that's no longer parallel, so that's good. Then we have a 5th in this voice, and no longer between these two voices, and that's, again, not ideal, but it's alright because we're dealing with an inner voice. Then there's also a 5th here and here, and it's okay because they're going in contrary motion, and it's not a 5th and a 5th. Then we don't have a 5th here, and we don't have a 5th here, and then our 5th here is entered by oblique motion. So we're really, we're taking the full power of you can leave out the 5th in this, but it is correct. Now let's check out the octaves. So we have an octave here, then we have an octave here that's entered by contrary motion. Then we have an octave here entered by contrary motion, octave here, but it's not parallel because they aren't moving. Then we have an octave here that's entered by similar motion, but with a step in the upper voice, but again, it doesn't matter because it's inner voices. Then we have an octave here entered by contrary motion, octave here entered by contrary motion, octaves here, similar motion, but because the soprano is moving by step, it's alright. Then we have octaves here not moving, so it's not parallel. And then we have octaves here, similar motion, but upper voice moving by step, and it's an inner voice, so it doesn't matter as much. Anyway, let's check out what we have. Cool. So this is just one solution. There might be a better one, but this is correct. So see you guys later. If you want, check out an AP level example.